Hello everyone, welcome to Painting Crafty, and today I'm going to be sharing an old-fashioned art technique called spun cotton. Now this has been around for generations, but it's new to me and it's my first time trying. I'm going to be making 3 small animals for this project using 100% cotton to create the form. It's rather kind of a cross between paper mache, but using cotton to create the sculptures with. Today I'm a part of a YouTube collaboration called Rustic Wednesday, but held on a Saturday. We have 2 hosts today. We have Shelly with Repurpose My Way and Dawn with Shabby Meets Bling, as well as a playlist of all the other videos that people have contributed for today's collaboration. You're going to find all the links to that down inside of the description box. Take some time, check out the channels, and definitely click that playlist. It's a fun theme down on the farm, so I'm sure there's going to be lots of creative ideas shared. Well, let's get started and I'll show you what I learned with creating these spun cotton miniature animals. To hold my pieces together, I used a cornstarch glue. The recipe is 1 tablespoon of cornstarch to 1 cup of cold water. Simmer this on the top of your stove until about egg white consistency, and then it gets thicker as it cools. For the cotton part, I use cotton balls that are made out of 100% cotton and unroll them so I have longer fibers to use for my sculpture pieces. For the legs for my animals, I use the pipe cleaners that are actually used for pipe cleaning. They have a slightly little bit of a barbed kind of middle in it on the wire, and they stick perfectly to the cotton. I traced out silhouette images for my animals on cardstock, cut them out, and they're going to be in the center, and that's just going to help create my animal shapes so much easier. A tip I would suggest is to have quite a few of your cotton balls already unwrapped and ready to go before you start wrapping your animal with the cotton. You're going to be using thread for this. A cotton thread is what you need to use, and you're going to use the thread to wrap around your cotton. You're going to have cotton on the front of your silhouette and then wrapped around to the back, and you're just going to wrap it around that form that you cut out of the cardstock. This is when having that cardstock in the middle really does help. We're not going for a lot of bulk right now. We're just working on each side. We're going to get that done first, and then we're going to be adding and bulking up our piece. This is the stage where we're going to add our legs, and this is when it comes in handy to have that little bit of a barbed wire in the inside. It's going to hold tightly to the cotton area. So you just slide your legs over, and then I took the thread and I wrapped it around it just a little bit to hold my legs in place. Once you have your legs in place, then it's time to add the extra bulk. So I'm going to be adding cotton on each side and on the top and some on the bottom as well. Once I have the cotton in place, that's when I'm going to take that thread and start wrapping again. And it's the same process. So you just keep on adding your cotton and keep on wrapping the thread until you've got your body built out to how thick you want it. Take your time when you're doing this. Make sure you're looking at your animal from all different directions to see if the shape kind of makes sense. The final steps, we're going to be adding the details. This is just building out the bulk of the body. When you get towards the end and you think you have enough cotton on, you're going to need to tie off your thread. So you're just going to wrap it around your finger as you go around, and then go ahead and clip it, and stick that thread underneath there, and go ahead and tie it off. The cotton does stick pretty well to itself, and the knot just kind of helps hold your thread into place. At this stage, it kind of looks like a little bit like a lumpy peanut, but it's going to look like something when I finish. Now to do the legs, I kind of start at the base of the legs, and then I'm going to wrap it around that pipe cleaner. First, I'm going to put a little bit of glue at the top. Then I'm going to take my cotton and wrap it. And I found a good trick to do is always wrap the same direction. So if you go from the back to the front, do that for all the legs. And then you're going to remember which way your piece is wrapped, and the legs will be tight. If you end up going one direction and then you go the other way, you kind of fight yourself and you're unwrapping your piece. So just decide which direction you want to wrap. I decided I was going to wrap towards myself. So you start at where that quarter is up high on your leg, and then wrap it down tight to the bottom. And that's how you're going to wrap each of your legs. The next cotton step was to add the rest of the cotton to the body. So I was going to be taking the glue and putting it on the surface over top of the thread, and then taking the cotton that I had kind of pulled out a little bit thinner, and then placing it over the top, and then adding some more glue over that. The goal for this step is to kind of cover up your thread and to make your body a little bit smoother. Now you can make this process super smooth, but I was going for more of a folk art style, and let's be honest, this was the first time I was doing this, so there was no way I was going to be perfect. My goal for this project was to create an animal that looked like the animal I was trying to create. So this little guy is going to be a sheep, so I wanted to have that face part be a little bit more smooth and smaller, and the rest of his body to be a little bit more fluffy. That was the goal for this piece. This step is exactly what I do with the rest of my pieces. So when I did the pig the same way. And when I did the chicken, of course I didn't put legs on my chicken, but I did the body the same way. In this step, you can also add just a few more details. I'm adding a little bobtail to my sheep, so I'm adding a little bit more fluffiness there and using my paintbrush to kind of sculpt that area. I'm also going to be adding just a little bit of fluff to the top of his head to fill in that part as well. So you can do a few little shaping parts here as well on this step, but for his ears, I'm going to be using a different process completely. To create the smaller details for my sculpture pieces, I'm going to use the technique that's called a wet cotton process. It really helps to have a plate there so you can put your cotton down and then totally wet your piece of cotton down. You might have to overlap it to get the thickness that you want. I was going to go ahead and use this process for my pigtail, so I twisted the pigtail and then pulled it off where I thought I wanted it, and the other end has that fuzzy bit, and that's going to be where it's going to stick onto my pig and blend a little bit better by having that little bit of fuzzy piece at the end. So I add the glue to the fuzzy piece, and that kind of attaches my tail down. Added a little bit of it underneath too to make sure it was attached fairly well. Then once I had the little pigtail attached, I curled it around and created a cute little swirly little pigtail on his bottom. And he's looking pretty darn cute with his little tail. And I do kind of the same process for his ears as well. For his little snout, I went ahead and created a rectangle piece and then flattened it out, and then I rolled it over to make kind of a roll shape. And I was going to be using that for the end of his snout, just to add a little bit more details to the front. Add a little bit more glue, rolled it over, and then put it on the front part of his nose. And that's just really going to help make it look more like a piggy if you have that nose part on there. I went ahead and attached it basically the same way I did the tail, using little bits of light cotton as the anchors to hold the little sculptured piece on. Got to fuss with this a little bit, but it does look cute in the end. To make the ears for the pig and the lamb, I do the same way. I make that rectangle piece of fabric, use a sharp scissors, and then I cut an ear shape out. You're going to fold it just a little bit to kind of indent your ear to give it a cute look. You're going to kind of figure that out as you put it on your animal, how it looks the best. This is a little bit of a futzy part that you have to do and a little awkward to kind of get your shape, but you do need to add a little bit of the dry cotton again with the little wispy parts to anchor your ears in. I use a stylus tool too, that little stylus tool there you can see off to the right. I use that to kind of go ahead and tap in, and you can make details with your stylus tool as well. You can use it to make lines or folds in your little sculpture pieces into the cotton. But I put the ears on the lamb the same way. The chicken was the easiest one to create, but the little ears and the snouts and stuff like that, that took a little bit more work. I also used the tool, that little stylus tool, to kind of indent where I wanted to put eyes for my piggy, but I didn't do that for my sheep, I just did it for the pig. Once you have your sculptures built, you need to let them dry completely. I stuck mine into the oven on a cookie sheet. I set the oven at 250, and then once it reached 250, I put my pieces in and just turned the oven off and let them be in there for about a couple hours, and they seem fairly dry after that. And once they're dry, we can go ahead and start the painting part. You can use any water-based paint to paint your cotton items. I was going to be using gouache, which is like a watercolor. It's just a little bit more opaque. But first, before I painted my little hen, I put a little bit of cornstarch on her body, and then I used that dark color of the Indian ink. I love the black quality of the ink, and it brings a real beauty to these pieces. By adding that little bit of the starch on top, when I place my paintbrush down, it's going to bleed that color out and give it a nice subtle look. But to do the comb and the beak of this piece, I wanted the color to stay put. So to get my color to stay put, I want that cotton on that area to be completely dry. So definitely don't put any water or any of the starch in those areas that you want the color to stay put and not move around. So I was going to be doing that for her comb and for her beak. As a final step to all my pieces, I took a little bit of instant coffee. I usually have a little bit sitting on my desk that's dried out. I just add a lot of water to it, reconstitute it, and then brushed it over my piece. Definitely make sure you add a lot of water to this because it could darken it very quickly with it being all cotton. But I thought it added a nice vintage feel to all the little characters. I mixed my gouache colors up kind of in a pink and a coral look and blended those on my little piggy. But first I did cover him with some of that cornstarch paste everywhere to make sure my colors were going to go ahead and blend a little bit more. And then I wanted to add a few more spots, so I took the India ink, and you can kind of see when I touch it, it blends out softly. If you want to soften your colors even a little bit more, you can apply them first and then take some of the cornstarch glue and rub it over your painted area, and that's going to go ahead and soften your colors and blend them a little bit more. To add the eyes to my little pig, I took the stylus, dipped it into the Indian ink, and then put the little dot inside of the hole I had created earlier with my stylus, a little ball shape area where my eyes would be going. And that just kind of set them back and created that perfect little eye shape for my pig. Before I added the stain to him, I did give him a quick little dry with my handheld dryer, and then I added the coffee stain on top. For my little sheep, I wanted to create a black and white sheep look, and I made the mistake of putting a little bit of that cornstarch glue on the front of his face before I had decided what I wanted to do, and that caused that black to kind of bleed over into the white. So if I really wanted that color to stay put, I needed to make sure the cotton was dry. I was able to fix the oops by adding a little bit of white gouache over the top. I wanted to say a special thank you to Don and Shelly for hosting today's collaboration. Definitely take some time, check out their channels, as well as click that playlist so you can see all the other videos contributed for today's collaboration. This was the next area I did kind of a little bit of a oopsie. I was a little bit too impatient and my ink was still wet while I was putting on my coffee stain, but I go back and add just a little bit of the white gouache over the top of that, and it did cover it up really well. It disguised it fairly well. Before I put the coffee onto the sheep, I really added a lot of water to it. I wanted very much a subtle look, so I wanted a little bit of the white of the cotton to show through, and then add some of the antiquing over the top. So I made sure I had a lot of water into that coffee before I added it to the top of the sheep. Well, let's see what they look like all finished and sitting in my studio. This was my first attempt, and you'll have to let me know if you think they really do look like a sheep, a pig, and a chicken. I had a lot of giggles about these little guys, and putting them together, I had some challenges and a few setbacks, but I learned a lot by doing it. If you're new to my channel and you like doing art and crafts, come on over and see what I'm doing. I'd love to have more creative friends join me. Leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed watching this tutorial. If you like seeing these little guys put together, here's a couple more videos you might want to check out. Well, thanks for joining me today, and hopefully you'll come back and join me again. And next time, you'll create right along with me.